All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a constitutional promise that literally dictates the future of millions of kids. We're talking about India's right to education. Now, on paper, it sounds absolutely perfect. But as we're going to see, it's currently under immense fire. So let's dive right into the massive gap between this beautiful legal promise and the gritty reality on the ground.
And that brings us to a pretty massive, almost counterintuitive question. Why on earth are thousands of Indian students out in the streets, actively protesting a fundamental right? I mean, a right to education is meant to guarantee opportunity, right? Yet somehow it has sparked massive unrest. To understand why, we really need to look at exactly what these students are demanding. Back in the intense 2026 demonstrations, you couldn't escape this one clear rallying cry: defend the constitutional right to education and demand accountability in the examination system. In New Delhi, thousands marched under the banner of the Cockroach Jinta Party, alongside various socialist groups and student unions, while similar massive movements were sweeping through Jharkhand. The thing is, they aren't rejecting education itself. Far from it. They are demanding that the system actually works fairly. To really wrap our heads around the gravity of this, we have to rewind a bit and look at how the law evolved. Pre-2002, education in India was merely a directive principle, basically a government suggestion. It wasn't something you could enforce in court. Then came 2002, and Article 21A was added to the Constitution, officially making it a fundamental right. By 2010, the Right to Education Act stepped in and gave this amendment its legal teeth, completely transforming education from a privilege into an absolute entitlement.
And that transition, it gave us what lawyers call a justiciable right. Now, what does that actually mean in plain English? It means if a local school unlawfully denies a kid admission, parents can literally take the government to court. Under Articles 32 and 226, everyday citizens now hold the legal firepower to demand justice, which completely flipped the power dynamic between the state and the people.
Okay, so what exactly does this law promise? The 2009 Act set up a pretty comprehensive, almost utopian framework. It guarantees free elementary education and enforces a strict no-detention policy right up until Class 8. It also mandates school management committees for local community oversight, puts a total ban on physical punishment, and absolutely prohibits capitation fees. You know, those hidden upfront costs that historically kept poorer families locked out of the classroom.
The absolute magic number anchoring this whole framework is 14. Specifically, from ages 6 to 14, every single child in India is guaranteed free schooling. And when you stop and think about the sheer scale of a country like India, guaranteeing that many millions of kids a seat in a classroom, it's an astronomical undertaking. But this window is so crucial. A safe classroom builds reasoning and social skills during this period of rapid brain development, while at the same time protecting these kids from harsh realities like child labor and early marriage. And then there's the 25% mandate. This is a monumental socioeconomic rule. Basically, private, unaided schools are legally required to reserve a quarter of their entry-level seats for kids from economically weaker sections. This is a deliberate design to break those generational cycles of poverty and level the playing field right from day one. It ensures that a child's access to quality education isn't just predetermined by their family's wealth, caste, or background. The ripple effects of these policies are just immense. When kids actually stay in school, cognitive development speeds up, and vulnerable populations, especially girls, see significantly improved maternal health outcomes down the line. And from an economic standpoint, this educated workforce attracts serious foreign investment. Basically, every rupee spent on education multiplies into higher productivity. It's a literal blueprint for national prosperity and economic mobility on a global scale. But, here is where we hit some serious friction. On one side, we have this pristine legal promise: free, compulsory, high-quality schooling. But on the other side, we have the current reality. We're talking severe infrastructure gaps, massive teacher shortages, and frankly, devastating exam paper leaks. The beautiful text of the law is just clashing hard against the gritty, everyday failures of the system. The barriers actually keeping students out of these classrooms are stark. You have many rural schools operating without functional toilets, clean drinking water, or even reliable electricity. And that lack of basic sanitation, it directly causes teenage girls to drop out. Then you have teacher shortages forcing chaotic multi-grade classrooms onto a single, totally overwhelmed teacher. Add in the economic pressures causing secondary-level dropouts, plus a severe pandemic-exposed digital divide, and the foundational cracks become pretty undeniable. And those foundational cracks, they eventually reach a breaking point Which brings us right back to the present day. The 2026 protests were not just about students being upset over tough tests. They were fundamentally about lost trust. Students are furious because paper leaks, technical glitches, and delayed results from testing bodies like the NTA and the JPSC have completely shattered their confidence. When a student cannot trust the exam itself, the whole system just feels rigged.
What these protests really lay bare are deep anxieties about the entire state of the right to education. Students are out there demanding transparent state and national exams, like the NEET UG, and they're pushing back hard against the privatization of education in favor of stronger public schooling. And this unrest had very real consequences. It actually succeeded in forcing the resignation of the union education minister. Ultimately, it shows us that corruption at the examination level breaks the very promise that was made back at the elementary stage.
So, how do we actually fix this? What are the lawmakers and education economists proposing to clear out the rot? Well, first, they are debating mandatory, independent audits of testing agencies to try and prevent future leaks. Next, there is a massive push for secure, tamper-proof digital exam technology. And finally, experts are arguing for heavily increased education spending to fix that broken infrastructure and to create faster, much more transparent grievance systems.
But listen, top-down reforms are never the whole story. Real change has to happen at the grassroots level, too. Engaged parents in those school management committees can catch legal violations way before formal audits ever do. Meanwhile, state governments really need to supplement overstretched teachers with smart classrooms and AI learning paths, prioritizing the poorest districts first. Combine that with community-run bridge courses and expanded legal aid clinics, and families finally have the actual tools to fight back when they're denied access.
Which leaves us with one final lingering thought. The law gives every Indian child the right to learn. It is a historic, beautiful legal promise. But from missing basic infrastructure to massive street protests over exam integrity, a right without honest implementation is really just a piece of paper. So, are we ready to truly guarantee their right to a fair future? Because the prosperity of India's next generation depends entirely on the answer. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking the tough questions.